Welcome to ReReview, where we watch movies from our past with a perspective from today. Your hosts are Matt, Bobby, and Austin, and we love the films from our youth, so we're taking a look back to see if they still hold up. On this episode, we're discussing Be Kind, Rewind. It was released in 2008, directed by Michel Gondry, stars Jack Black, Yasin Bey, also known as Mos Def, and Danny Glover. This movie harkens back to a simpler time where VHSs ruled the day, or maybe a little bit after that. Now, this is a fair warning. We're spoiling a 16-year-old movie, so if you haven't seen it, we will be revealing key plot points. Did I do my math wrong? Is it right? Okay. I saw questioning faces there. You know, Be Kind Rewind is as this opens, and especially just the name alone. I mean, how does it not play to the old blockbuster nostalgia or just the video store nostalgia in general? And obviously, that's the driving point, right? It's sort of a community. I guess I want to call it a community movie around the thing that we all used to love to do and reasons why there's at least one blockbuster that still exists out there and that people still go to. Because how do you replace that feeling of walking into a video store and picking up a VHS or later on picking up a DVD? I mean, I'd be the first to admit, I wish I could still do that, right? I kind of wish it wasn't just scrolling.
I think there's a video store in Austin called I Love Video or something like that. It's like straight up video store. So it might be a bar too.
No, wait. Okay.
I like this bar concept. Let's talk more about the bar.
Oh, I love the idea. It's like I'm here to get a movie and get sloppy drunk at the same time. But that was like the fun thing, right? Just walking into the store. And I know we've waxed poetic about the beauty that was Blockbuster from back in the day, but I don't know, throughout the entire movie, there was a bit of a joy for me just thinking about the shenanigans that it meant to be with your friends. Like, what do you want to do? Well, let's run to Blockbuster. And just walking around the store trying to figure out what you want to watch for the night and then kind of arguing over the stupid picks you were going to make.
It's funny because I feel like this movie reminded me a little bit more of, so I worked at a Hollywood Video and spent a good chunk of my childhood at a Blockbuster, but I have a very distinct memory of growing up in a very small town. And it was like less than 1,000 people in this town. There was no major stores. There was no anything like that. All we had was a gas station that had a section of video rentals. They were all VHSs. Wow. And it was like 10 VHSs tops. And they would rotate every once in a while. And I think they were probably like 15 years behind or something on whatever the current release was. But this kind of reminded me of it because it wasn't like a very large selection of VHSs that they had. I mean, I think you had brought it up when we were watching. Like, I don't think we really had a great sense of when this is supposed to take place. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's whenever DVDs were really kind of burgeoning and coming into the market, which would have been early 2000s. So this isn't quite when the movie came out that this is probably taking place, but didn't really have a good sense for when that actually was supposed to be.
They completely ignored the fact that we didn't just go straight from DVD or VHS to DVD. There was like some kind of format war in between there.
Bobby, I love you. The idea that what this movie really needed, and let's talk 10 minutes about this, was a full breakdown of the DVD format war and who was supposed to come out on top there. Oh my gosh.
But okay, I'm going to say this right now. I kind of wish I would have seen that movie a little bit more. Like, I just want... To me, I think that the movie that I went into because full disclosure, I hadn't seen this movie in its entirety up until now. I'd only seen like the first 10 minutes of it. So first time watching it all the way through. And I knew of the concept of it. I knew the premise of it is the VHSs get destroyed. All of them get wiped or whatever. And they have to go back and re-record their own versions of the movie. So I knew that going into it. But there was a part of me that was hoping that this was going to be a love letter to that culture of VHSs and blockbusters and stuff like that. And I don't quite think that it was that. There was hints of it, but I kind of wish that I had seen that movie where like you had Like you could take maybe a couple of these characters and put it in it, but then I almost kind of want like a Jay Baruchel from Tropic Thunder talking about the history of like Blu-ray and HD DVD battles
Yeah.
and how, pornography tied into it. And like a couple characters, maybe like the guys from Fanboys, working at this video rental store talking about, like, I'm talking about a completely different movie and I completely understand that, but that's what I kind of was expecting coming into this. And I didn't quite get that from it.
But did you need that?
I wanted it.
Yeah.
So from beginning to end, I feel like I didn't quite have a pulse on what this movie was really trying to go for, because it
I kind of still don't.
I don't like.
Is it a love letter to movies in general?
That was my note.
Movies bring people together, and
of all the things, the optimist here is downplaying this. I'm just gonna walk away now.
Well, but I guess that's the part that has left me kind of confused by, watching through this and getting to the, not trying to jump to the end of it, but kind of getting to the end of it is, was it about, just the local video store and what it brought to the community? I didn't really get that, because it became more about the community coming together to make movies.
Yes.
Rather than just having a place to go rent movies. It was more about them just making the movies and the fun of it. So it's more about just movie making rather than just the premise of a Blockbuster type store.
Well, you know what I thought in particular, as much as, again, I'm attaching the Blockbuster piece, is that the joy of making film, but specifically Michel Gondry's approach and joy of how he makes his movies, since it was like, let's have the town do all the quirky shit that I do in all my movies because it's my movie, so I'm going to make sure the movie's full of all the quirky shit that I like to do, right?
I mean, I really like that part of it, because I have like filmmaker friends and stuff, and like it's really easy to find a way like not to do a movie. Like, oh, I want to make a movie, but we don't have millions of dollars, right? I want to make a movie, but we can't do it because we don't have locations, we don't have a train, we don't have 20s cars, we don't have this. Like, I mean, like, I like the idea of just make it. It doesn't matter, just make it.
You mean ignoring all the like licensing requirements and permits and everything, all the red tape? Just ignore all of it.
Yeah, you don't need any of that. just
Then
do it.
Get sued by the city, the county, every single government agency.
Well, I mean, there's movies like there's a bunch of movies where there's a group of people it was kids at the time who made a nearly shot for shot remake of Indiana Jones, and it's played in film festivals.
No, I thought you were going to say, and they all were sued.
No,
sorry.
No. My understanding is like Steven Spielberg said, "Hey, awesome movie, good job, guys." Like I think there's other examples that go in the opposite way. Like Star Trek fan movies, like they get sued, but
Well, it depends on which company it is.
But this is where I guess I kind of got confused, because going into the first 20 minutes of this movie, I didn't get an impression that either Jack Black's, or I'm sorry, I'm terrible at remembering their characters' names, Mike and Jerry. I didn't have a solid feeling that they were like huge movie fans or something like that. That they were like huge movie nerds or anything. Where like they would have been really into it.
I get that, especially as you see all the mixing with the focus on Fats Waller. You are kind of having the debate, are they here for the jazz and the history of jazz? Is that what we're focusing on? Or yes, you're absolutely right. They're kind of the love for movies. And maybe that's reflected in their sweeted versions of the movies, because they weren't accurate, right? They kind of would wing it for what they were producing.
You know what it kind of feels like? It almost feels like a very long form of I Love Lucy episode, where Lucy and, oh my God, what was the other? Ethel accidentally dumped out a bunch of stuff, and they had to suddenly make a bunch of stuff and fill back up jars or something. They dumped out a bunch of alcohol and had to get grape juice and try to make, homemade alcohol themselves.
That's good.
That's what it kind of feels like. It feels
like that.
It feels like less that they were trying to be like our tours or anything like that, or like they're trying to be like fans of filmmaking, more like they were literally just trying to fix all the VHS. I know Jack Black's motivation was very much that he was just trying to be something more than what he was, and to try to get out of that small town and to get bigger. Whereas with Mike's character, Mike, he was trying to just not mess up, the business for Mr. Fletcher, and to kind of be the son figure to him. So they had very different reasons for going about it. And there's just this was almost like a means to an end. And then once they got good at it or popular for it, that's when I think it started kind of feeding into, okay, this is a thing, right?
I really like that comparison. As someone who's a big fan of I Love Lucy, I think it's so accurate that
it is.
I'm very.
Is Danny DeVito
really
Ricky?
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because it is that they're just trying to put a patch on things, and it's not a perfect patch. It's still a patch that's worth suing over, apparently, but it's not a perfect patch that they go through this process. I mean, we obviously have our pieces that set up all the shenanigans. Jack Black is a conspiracy person, and everyone wears Faraday cages around him, but that's because he lives under wires, under power lines. At the same time, I think, Matt, you asked this, is this a superhero movie? the Degauser ban?
Yeah, that just kind of went away at one point. They just stopped with that whole thing.
But there was a lot of focus on it at first, right?
This is where I question choices. Did it have to be that he started degousing things as compared to he set off an EMP pulse or something from doing something that's what wiped them? Did they really need to have him become a human degauser for the first half of the movie and then just drop it?
They had a bunch of funny sight gags with it, like him getting sucked away by some crazy magnetism force. And
but what does that add to the movie?
It was just slapstick, right?
Yeah, it was just a fun way to do some things stick into stuff jokes.
Was it?
When you put it that way.
Am I bad for saying, was this supposed to be a comedy? I don't know if I laughed that much while watching this.
I yes, I feel like there are definitely those elements that make it comedy. But maybe not in the traditional sense. Maybe it gives you just a little tickle, just a little, little belly rub, make you laugh a little bit. No, Jamat's just done.
No,
he
but
didn't laugh at all.
But here's the thing, right? You have Jack Black and you have Mos Def, both of which I've seen be funny.
Yeah,
Jack Black kind of rubs me the wrong way in a lot of the stuff that he makes, but at the very least, I've laughed through some of it. But I don't think I laughed really once during this. Yeah, I don't think I laughed once. I might have chuckled maybe, but I think it was just by how insane it was, the thing that was going on. It's weird.
I mean, if we're counting full out raucous laughter, yeah, I don't know that this movie necessarily presents you with that. We had a couple chuckles, and then we also have some problematic moments we'll get into. But I think through this that I learned, and maybe Bobby, you could talk about it, or Matt, that they invented the word "sweeted."
Yeah, I didn't realize that until this movie, and I don't know if the concept of that was invented by this movie, but for a good while there was, in some cult filmmaking communities, there was a sweeted thing. I remember people posting sweeted videos. I guess this was YouTube. I don't even remember where they were posting this, but I do remember a rash of these sweeted videos. The idea of it was to make the movie as concise as possible, show the movie and it'd be I don't know, 5 minutes long or 3 minutes long, or sometimes even shorter. And it'd be here are the main points, just kind of boiled down to the just simplest, most important parts of the movie in 3 or 4 scenes, as cheap and as fast as you can do it and go. And they're really entertaining. I remember I saw a Goodfellas version, and I remember watching these and thinking these are fun. I don't even have to watch the real movie. This is perfect for my ADD. They're so short and neat. And some of them, they were kind of creative with the ways that they would do stuff.
It's funny because with this whole thing about this bringing probably the Swedish word to the lexicon, looking into it, I never knew why it was called being Sweded. I always just assume it was because like someone in Sweden was doing these kind of films or whatever. But
I
apparently,
thought the exact same thing.
apparently it's because the director, the way he tried to say suede was Sweded. And so suede is fake leather, faux leather. And so that apparently was the reason why it was called Sweded. Because
that's really good.
Interesting.
And again, like it's a thing that has existed and I had no reference to it whatsoever as to where it came from. Now, I'm the same thought process, right? I'm sure it existed long before that, long before this. The Indiana Jones is a really good example. I mean, you look at even like the Spielbergs, most of them started their careers making parody films of things. Most of the modern directors that I enjoy, they all have movies from when they were like 12 to 16 filmed on Super 8 cameras and stuff like that, where they, God, I just realized I might have to explain what a Super 8 camera is.
No, they did a movie called Super 8. The kids know.
But then they have to watch that though. That might be too old for them.
They would have to watch that.
But it was that idea of like, I went and I watched Jaws. I enjoyed Jaws. So I remade Jaws in my backyard in my swimming pool. Right. So the idea of it has existed long before that, but that term Sweded seems to have originated here with him in this one. So it, at the very least, we now know, the more you know.
Well, considering how many films they Sweded, was there any one in particular you actually enjoyed from what you saw and what they put together in the movie?
I thought the Ghostbuster one was really clever. I mean, I like that.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one. I mean, and I wonder if it was partially because, they started playing the Ghostbuster song, which I like, and, all the fun
Nostalgia
stuff.
berries.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just thought it was neat.
I wanted to see an extended version of Boogie Nights. Like, where was that?
No, that was really quick. That one went by quick. I put mine down for the Pizza Boys in the Hood. And just the cuts for the pizza being on the ground as the play. It just, that was fantastic. I did wonder because we have who's it that comes in? It's Sigourney Weaver, yeah.
Is it a coincidence that she was in Ghostbusters?
And then
just
no, I'm sure that was probably intentional. That was probably, I imagine, Jack Black probably calling in a favor. Like I can't imagine this is a situation where somebody was like, let's get Sigourney Weaver for this part. Jack Black was like, I'm going to call Sigourney Weaver and have her come in for the, cause like that part feels like it could have very easily been done in a day. Like she could have just showed up, filmed those few scenes and then left. And it totally would have been plausible for that to happen.
Right.
Cause like I almost would say that like, I'd be shocked if anywhere in the credits it even lists her.
But I also buy her as a lawyer.
MPAA lawyer.
Yeah.
Wait, was she a lawyer? Was she? I thought she was supposed to be a government agent. Was she supposed to be MP, like a lawyer?
It was all of the above, basically coming to go after that.
She talked about studios.
Well, because she brought up the FBI warning. I don't know. I guess I just assume she's a federal agent because they pull up in the black car. Yeah. Like that was the whole thing, right? The black Lincolns or whatever.
I thought she worked for the other dude who was trying to buy the building. Like it was like a scare tactic situation.
Yeah, that whole subplot. Yeah, there's a conversation there. Cause like then I started thinking of like batteries not included in that whole thing where they're like trying to get them out of the building. I was like, how are you going to sit there and like be the ones who are telling him that he has to follow regulations to keep his building and then tell him what you're going to do with the building as soon as you kick him out? Like,
right.
That is such a conflict of interest that I don't even know how the hell that happened. Actually, like that dude needed a lawyer so bad because I'm sure most of this movie wouldn't have needed to happen without it. But I guess that was also kind of the problem because like the first part of it wasn't necessarily connected to that portion because there was the whole side quest that, I'm sorry, was it Fletcher? Fletcher was going on trying to figure out what the market was doing with DVDs and what was it, the little scrub daddy thing that those dudes were putting
Right.
together for dishes.
That was just a way to get rid of the one adult in the room so that the kids can go off and destroy everything, right?
I had to send daddy away so it can cause trouble.
And he comes back saying there's only 2 categories that matter in all of film. Only 2. Action and comedy.
Okay, but now we need to go back and look at the movies we've watched and see if that's true or not.
Right.
Because we just got done watching a comedy movie, so there's strike one.
Those are the ones people want to rent. None of the weird avant-garde shit.
Yeah, get rid of
Even
the
though this might fall
documentaries.
under weird avant-garde, right? So if we look at, ultimately they go through this process, and as you mentioned, the bringing together the townspeople through all this. I think one of the points that was I heard the frustration was around the idea of they needed money to save the store, but the people who knows that they need money to save the store were not willing to actually just hand over that money. They said we also need to be stars, right?
Yeah, logic. Because and this is where I guess the part of the movie that I wanted to see, which was like the local, the small town coffee shop type concept, where like this video rental store was like the place that everyone grew up on or something. So like everyone had like attachment to it. Everyone, knew Fletcher, and it was just kind of like the hub. And then you had, I think I'm about to describe, I think, what was it, Empire Records or whatever? What was that?
Mhm.
Yeah, it was Empire Records.
Yeah, with like the big corporate record store and
Yep.
the small,
Mhm.
like hipster type store. Like I kind of was expecting that mentality where like they would, because the same people who were expected to pay for these were also the people who were doing it, but they could have just given them the money in the first place if that's all that was
Mhm.
needed.
Well, nobody knew that the place was closing, right? I mean, they just thought something crazy was going on. Like, that's why I was like a little bit also confused why there was a giant gathering at the end. It's like they didn't actually gather for the reason of trying to keep the place open and keep it from being gentrified. They just gathered because there was a local movie being played, right? Am I missing something?
That starred, well, I think everyone who was in the movie went into the store, right? And the people who weren't in the movie were outside.
Yeah. That was the rest of the town. Because I think the people inside had like they were aware that they were trying to save
Mm-hmm.
the building essentially. The people outside had no clue. But
and then the Blockbuster dude, the like West Video or whatever, like he was struggling too. So it wasn't just the mom and pop video shop, it was the other one too.
Well, we didn't, I mean, that's the assumption that's being played, right? We didn't get the exact reason, which is fine, but it's the idea that somehow he has the store that Fletcher wants to become, and he's not even making it doing that.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
like
I mean, at this point, were the Blockbusters going out of business in 2008? They were still thriving then,
they
right?
were still chugging along at that point. I feel like around that time is when Netflix was going strong. I think Netflix was still in the purely DVD shipping business at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that 2008 is about when I started noticing, oh, these are starting to go away now. So yeah, I think that it was starting to kind of get to that point. Like it would have been so meta for some made up version of Netflix person to show up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll take these VHSs off your hand and mail them to people. I think one of the other things that was mentioned as we went through it is a little bit of contrast to the fact that in 2008, Tropic Thunder was also released. And in this particular movie, Jack Black is, he's in Rush Hour, and he also wants to play Fats Waller. Didn't feel the same as
Technically, he was in the Boys in the
as
Hood
Tropic
as
Thunder.
well. Technically,
Yeah.
Yes, he was. The blackface wasn't there on that one.
no, but I felt like everyone was kind of uncomfortable with the situation at the time. They might have even said something.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Tropic Thunder was also a good example of not how to get away with it, but how to be cognizant of why it's wrong in the first place. And even if it's still done, that everyone in the world understands that it's wrong and that it shouldn't be done. So in Tropic Thunder, obviously you had, oh my God, why am I forgetting the rapper's name? Oh no.
Booty Sweat.
Yeah, Booty Sweat guy. Oh, I can't remember his name, but he called it out specifically to his face and didn't let him get away with it. And in this, when he did pop
Al
out,
Pacino.
oh, God.
Oh yeah.
And Lance. But in here, the same thing happened. He walks out and everyone just gives him the dead stare, right? Like they're like, no. And like his mentality is, well, Fats was fat and I'm the only fat one here. So it only makes sense. And at that point, I think he had kind of been the main character in every movie. A point that was kind of pointed out by Mike's character. It's like, why is it always him? A point that I thought was actually going to become a point of contention was, why are you always the main character? Why are you always the one who's trying to be in front of the camera and trying to be the lead in all this? Because in a lot of ways, I actually felt like Mike's character was the main character of this movie.
Yeah.
Like Jack Black's character was not the main character, if you ask me.
Well, you thought that pivot could happen because of that conversation he had with Alma, and basically him saying, "I want to kiss you." And why does it get to be Jack Black Jerry all the time?
Yeah. I thought that was going to be a second act bump that they're going to have to get over, but they didn't really go there. At that point, they're probably just like, we have to do all the rest of the stuff we have to juggle. We can't do that too.
It seems like they dropped it all,
Like the degousing.
Yeah.
Just like the degousing. I guess, okay, if there was a path you were taking, Bob, you're designing this movie, what would you shift to kind of get some tweaks that would get back optimistic Bobby?
I mean, I think, like I kind of mentioned before, like I think maybe it's like cliche, but I mean, I think it would be a little bit more wholesome if everybody was trying to like come together as a community and try to fight together to keep their place from being gentrified, as opposed to just watching a movie. Like could they have found out, like like for example, like Encanto, they've got their magic house, and then the Encanto house has been helping the family. The whole town kind of seems like they take them for granted, if not like even like are a little bit afraid of them, or something going on. But at the end, they all come together, and I thought it was kind of like a wholesome situation.
I was so confused because I was like, was Encanto about gentrification? I don't remember this.
Well, no, it was about like coming together to help the family who's in trouble, like regardless.
But you're saying you wish more people knew earlier, and that it was like a rally around the store type of thing.
I think that it should have been for something, as opposed to just like, we made a movie and it's funny and look like, and I mean, maybe that's kind of like implied for what happens after the credits, is that like the town bands together and says, hey, look, we're this junk little town that no one leaves because they can't. Maybe it's implied after the credits, but I mean, it didn't happen during the movie. Which good runtime, but still.
Yeah, it's like you want to add another 40 minutes to the film. Matt, what's a little tweak that you would have appreciated? I know you probably have a laundry list, so I'm asking just for one.
Without turning it into a completely different movie. I think just having the two characters big cinephiles at the beginning would have made it, because like that's one thing that I didn't quite get is, they're basically remaking movies from memory, because Google and stuff are still fairly, like the internet is still fairly, not quite at the level that we have now. Because if you think about it, like you think they'd be looking up a bunch of this stuff, but they were doing it from memory for the most part. Yep. So having them, at the very least one, if not both of them, being huge cinephiles at the beginning, and it being apparent, and maybe it was there, it just wasn't as apparent to me. But having that at the very beginning,
agree. I think they could have definitely made it more clear that they weren't just, the guy who works at a shop that visits the video store and the guy who runs the store because he's helping out the old man. Yeah, I 100% agree. And like, they don't really show you that.
If you have Jack Black's character wanting to be a filmmaker, like say if like he constantly talks while he's in the store about how he wants to be Steven Spielberg, or he wants to do all this stuff, whatever. But because of his situation or whatever, he just doesn't get, like Bobby said, people talk about it, but then they get discouraged from it. And so they don't do it. And then this forces him to just do it at whatever level he can. He does it, and then that's how he starts kind of building up his confidence in the process, and it becomes a movie about that. I would probably remove a couple of the smaller elements. Like, I don't really think that you had to focus so much. The fats thing ties into the make your own story thing at the end, but it didn't I don't think it was as necessary, to be honest. Like, there was, I think that there's probably that would make it more entertaining to me, but it's not necessarily, I think that I'd end up making a completely different movie, to be honest.
Well, I think balancing, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of that focus of they peppered in essentially the movie they made at the end throughout the entire film, as we saw all the flashbacks and the talking about fats and the stuff that we were supposed to accept as truth that we learned later is just people making stuff up. That mix between those fats items and then them just going through that particular process. It's one of those where I love jazz. I love the idea of everything that they were trying to do there, but it was the bit of that disconnect outside of landing exactly where you said it did. The two things next to each other never fully tied in, I guess, in a way, is what I'll say. So we'll go for the question time. Bobby, are you recommending Be Kind Rewind?
I think it was
the optimist paused so long there. I don't know that any of us knew what to do with it. I am both proud and sad at the same time.
No, I mean, I think I'm trying to think of the word. I mean, I think my go-to word is interesting a lot, I mean, I think it was, it was an engaging movie. It was funny. I mean, I think there is like a very fun love of cinema that I appreciated. I don't know what this movie was trying to say. I mean, I'm still a little bit confused by it. I mean, I think it's worth watching because I think there's some interesting things to it, but I think maybe I need to do a review.
Oh, he's ready to go back in. There's the optimist right there. Matt, are you recommending Be Kind Rewind?
So at this point, I don't think you're going to be too surprised about what I'm about to say, but I have the complete opposite impression to Bobby, I do not believe that it was engaging, unfortunately.
The shock and awe. I'm so surprised.
I think that there is a place for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was better movies that you could watch. If you're a fan of the idea of filmmaking and cinema and optimism, I think that Super 8's probably a better movie for that, to be honest. I think that there's probably other movies that do a better job of being nostalgia for the time period of VHSs. But I don't even know if I could recommend this movie if you're a Jack Black fan, to be honest. I don't think this is one of his stronger works. If you're a huge fan of Jack Black, I don't think that this would be in your top 5, to be honest. So sadly, I cannot recommend this movie.
Wow, there we go. We got a half foot in, a definite no, and I'm going to be the one who says yes, but I'll give my qualifications. I'm coming from the idea of it being quirky and it being simple is, I guess, the way I look at it. Like, everything we're doing here where we're trying to figure out what they wanted to do, just let it go. Just let it go. Watch some shenanigans happen. Some people pretend to remake some movies. And it's like quirky and maybe even like a word, like it's trying to be cute. Depending on how you take that term, you may say that's a bad or a good thing. So I'll get in between there and say I'll be the one who recommends it just to see something that's a little bit different. But don't go in with high expectations. I think Matt's criticism is a bit warranted, but I'd still watch it. Well, as always, thank you for listening. And no, our past belongs to us. We can change it if we want.